Fox 2 presents Hancock and Kelly.
And good Sunday morning to you. Welcome to Hancock and Kelly on Fox 2, where we take on the top issues of the week. On the right, John Hancock.
Top of the morning.
On the left, Michael Kelly.
Good morning.
And I'm Andy Banker. On the agenda, 2 years after voters decided emphatically that St. Louis County Executive Sam Page cannot hold two jobs, he faces an ethics probe for doing it again. Former U.S. Senator John Danforth disses fellow Republican incumbent Senator Josh Hawley and endorses a third-party candidate in the upcoming election. Vice President Kamala Harris finally grants an interview and says though her stances on key issues may have changed, her values have not. And in our quote of the week, Democrats are accused of being very undemocratic as they preach about protecting democracy. Also, new polling shows where Missouri voters may be headed with the election now just a little more than 2 months away. We begin with the elected leader of the largest local government in Missouri, Democrat St. Louis County Executive Sam Page. Just 2 years ago, voters approved a measure explicitly stating that the county executive shall hold no other employment. Page was still working part-time as an anesthesiologist then. He now says he volunteers at St. Louis University Hospital about a half day every other week. But the Post-Dispatch reports state Medicaid records show that Page has been reimbursed for services. Page says any money billed under his name goes to other members of the team, the anesthesia team at St. Louis, you and not him. A county council chairwoman, Shalonda Webb, is not buying it. She's a fellow Democrat. She says, the people spoke loud and clear in 2022. I am reestablishing the ethics committee immediately to look into this because the people deserve answers and they deserve them now. John, can Sam Page, should he be able to explain this away again?
No. You would think he would have been finished with putting people to sleep after all those news conferences during COVID, but apparently that's not the case. This is now the second time he's been caught moonlighting. You can't moonlight. You really couldn't moonlight before, but clearly now that the people have amended the charter, he's violating, if not the letter of the charter, certainly the spirit of it. And he's really thumbing his nose in the face of voters by doing this. And it's an arrogant, tone deaf thing to do. And I think he's going to find himself in some trouble here.
Proposition B that voters passed 2 years ago that Chairwoman Webb is talking about says that if you violate the rule, you forfeit your office.
Right, but he says he's not working, he's volunteering, and that is noble. Look, he has a very valuable skill set that can mean a lot, and volunteering is a very noble thing.
But these records show someone's getting paid something.
It's definitely messy, and some questions are going to have to be answered. I know Sam Page. Sam Page is a decent man who wants to do the right thing, particularly as a doctor. He's decided to get involved in politics. He's spent millions of dollars several times now to be the county executive. I don't think regular voters think when they elect a congressman or a county executive or a mayor that this is a part-time job, that this is something they're going to do from 8 to 5. I think they see it as a 24/7 job. And surely St. Louis County is that. We've got those issues in St. Louis County. So why it's noble, I don't understand why he's doing this. I don't know why he's wanting this distraction, which for the next several months, when this county is continuing to lose population and revenue, is going to spend a bunch of time debating his stuff rather than the issues that need to be focused on in the county.
If you want to be,
can't he volunteer?
No. If he wants to be an anesthesiologist, be an anesthesiologist, but you can't do that and be county executive.
Couple of half days every other week or two.
Pick one. Pick one.
It's a big job too. I mean, I don't think any of us think that the person who's running county, and this used to be the stable touch point of regional governance in St. Louis. And now for the last several years, it seems to be the one place that's got the biggest storms going on. We want stability again.
Page critic and Republican Dennis Hancock, county council member, was temporarily booted from his seat on the council after trying to hire his stepdaughter as an aide, which is explicitly forbidden by the Missouri State Constitution. A judge, though, reinstated him just minutes before he cast a key vote on a key issue. Hancock took a verbal shot at Page. He did not attend Wednesday's council meeting.
And I did note that the county executive isn't present this afternoon. I hope that he's not once again volunteering at SLU instead of coming to a council meeting.
Now, Hancock attended the meeting himself via Zoom or whatever, virtually, because he wasn't sure they were going to allow him in. A judge issued an emergency handwritten order saying, though, right as the meeting was starting, that St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell obtained an earlier order removing Hancock without first giving Hancock legal notice in violation of court rules. Hancock says his stepdaughter worked 1 week but was never officially hired by the county. She was never paid. He regrets the mistake. He did cast a deciding vote in a proposal for a ballot measure to have the county council be able to obtain its own legal counsel separate from that of County Executive Sam Page. What do you think's really going on here, Michael?
Well, there's a lot going on here. The real fight is over whether or not the county council ought to be able to have its own legal counsel. Why not? I don't know that the legislative branch ought to have to use the executive branch's lawyer. That's what the ultimate underlying political issue is here. But Hancock violated the law, not this Hancock. Councilman Hancock violated the law.
Right.
You cannot, I get a lot of lectures from my Republican friends telling me to read the Constitution. It's right there in the Constitution about nepotism. You can't do it. So he should be removed. How it all went down, surely this is politics, and it may ultimately go back to bite the people who implemented it that way.
John?
Well, he could have hired me and avoided the whole nepotism thing because we're not related. You know, he clearly didn't know that was part of the deal. Or
No, I'm right. I talked to him. He said, I didn't know that was in a Missouri Constitution.
And here's the thing. When I was elected to the legislature back in the dark ages, they sent us on a 2-week training session before we ever set foot in the state capitol. And they taught us all of these regulations. I wonder if that exists in St. Louis County. It should. People that have been elected to office ought to be informed about what the rules are before they get there.
I wouldn't even say the implication. I'd say the allegation. And the allegations are swirling that this was all directed by Sam Page to get him off the county council so he couldn't cast the deciding vote to put the legal representation matter before voters in November.
Listen, all's fair when love and war and surely politics. And so we're watching that play
really?
out.
Is that okay?
I think this is what people are starting to get fed up with, though, in St. Louis County. I mean, these folks at the county council and the county executive can't agree on much. And it's not breaking down on partisan lines anymore. It seems to be breaking down on personality lines of whether or not you're a supporter of the county executive.
Was the judge right, the second judge right, in reinstating Hancock?
Yeah.
Even though he clearly violated the state constitution?
Well, she wasn't paid. And so, I think that's the point at which you, at that point, violate the Constitution. But I do, people that get elected to office ought to be trained in what the rules are before they take office.
A lion of Missouri politics, former U.S. Senator and UN Ambassador, Republican John Danforth, endorses a third-party candidate, Jared Young, over fellow Republican incumbent Senator Josh Hawley in the upcoming election.
The extreme right has kind of turned into the extreme left. It's as though there's a circle and they've converged on each other. So if they're given a third choice, which is not out there on the fringes, but which is right in the heart of where the American people are, then I think that there's a real chance.
And Jared Young is sort of centrist conservative. That was him in the orange shirt. He's leading what he calls the better party, with candidates focusing on issues instead of demonizing their opponents. His campaign is producing a mini documentary about political opposites watching Cardinals and Royals baseball games together. That's where these photos are from. Danforth has said his past support of Hawley was the biggest mistake of his life in the wake of the January 6th riots, because Hawley was involved in everything that sort of led up to that and being against the certification of the vote for president in 2020. I guess Danforth means it.
Well, every April they have the draft in the NFL. You know about that. And the very last player selected, Andy, do you know what they're called?
Yeah, Mr. Irrelevant.
Well, that's Jack Danforth. I don't know that he's going to have much of an influence here. This Jared Young fellow seems like a nice guy, but he's not going to win. He's not going to be the senator. And so, good for Senator Danforth.
Michael?
Seeing him makes me a bit nostalgic back to when a Republican Party seemed to have a central core. And for that matter, when the senator seemed to be more of a mainstream voice inside the Republican Party. I think he's just a lone wolf out there right now, like John says, fighting to be relevant. I don't necessarily like the endorsement that he made. And the reason why is while Jared may be a nice man, I think this is a person who's ultimately pushing an agenda for content and what he's trying to do in social media. And we have real issues to be dealing with in politics. for people not to be out, trying to make a reality TV show. Oh.
We're now just 2 months and a day away from the historic, what did I say? 4 days away, right? 2 months, 4 days?
That
It's
sounds
on a
right.
Tuesday,
Somewhere
right?
in there.
Somewhere. Skip the math. But the historic 2024 election, it's on the brink, and new polling suggests Missouri is ready to legalize abortion, but not ready to elect Democrats. A new St. Louis University YouGov poll suggests the ballot measure to lift Missouri's abortion ban and allow abortions up to nearly 6 months of pregnancy has the support of 52% of those polled, 34% opposed. In that U.S. Senate race, Republican incumbent Josh Hawley, double-digit lead over Democrat Lucas Kunce. Jared Young is not polling at all. The same goes for the governor's race, with Republican Mike Kehoe with a safe lead over Democrat Crystal Quaid. Michael, all statewide Republicans have leads at least that big.
Yeah. I think it's a false narrative to believe that only Democrats are out supporting this abortion initiative. We're seeing Republicans, independents who worked hard to put this on the ballot. This part of that issue's crossing across party lines. It definitely discriminates and is helpful to Democrats. But the reality of where we are as a state right now, unfortunately, we're not debating the issues that matter in this state. We've federalized our state elections, so we're having narratives that have nothing to do with state government. And the voters really in Missouri tend to be Republican when it comes to that.
Are you surprised the abortion issue doesn't appear in the polling to have it much poll for Democrat candidates?
No, and that narrative was out there that if you put abortion on the ballot, it's going to accrue to the benefit of all these Democrat candidates. This polling, and the polling I've seen, says that that's just not the case.
Up next on Hancock and Kelly, the race for the White House. Donald Trump making news all over the political map, and Kamala Harris finally sits for an interview. Which one had a better week, her or Trump?